You're good friends from now on. Yuan grabbed Virus and Great White's paws and smacked them together. However, Virus released a dangerous growl while Great White coldly looked at Virus. Their astrological signs truly don't match. President. An impeccably dressed, middle-aged man entered Yuan's office with large strides. Speak, Yuan said. President, there are people from the Martial Arts Union who want to see you, the middle-aged man replied with a frenzied expression. Martial Arts Union, Yuan frowned lightly when she heard that. Chapter 1338 Big Dipper mentioned to Yuan earlier that the Martial Arts Union would seek trouble from her. However, after coming to the independent state and entering the Fearless Alliance, she followed the rules rather well and didn't do anything inappropriate. As the official power of the independent state, why was the Martial Arts Union looking to make trouble for her? Could it be that Bro Flat Top did something that offended the Martial Arts Union, and now the Martial Arts Union is adding the payback to my tab? Yuan thought. If that's true, then I truly became a professional scapegoat. I know. Come here and help me look after these two. Yuan slowly stood up but didn't look away from Virus and Great White, afraid that these two ancestors would start fighting as soon as she looked away. Virus had no regard for his life at all when he fought, and Great White might not like to instigate trouble, but he wasn't afraid of trouble either. If Virus wanted to fight to the death with him, Great White would only comply. Ah. Virus. Press, The man in a suit's expression instantly shifted when he heard that and sweat soaked his forehead. President, you know Virus' personality best. He's too aggressive and powerful, and only listens to you in the entire Fearless Alliance. How could I watch over them? What made the suited man most speechless was that his president not only raised Virus but also obtained a white tiger. If these two beasts started fighting, who could suppress them? Moreover, what would he do if these two wild beasts didn't fight each other and wanted to tear him apart instead? Do as I say, stop blabbering, Yuan ordered coldly. All right, helpless, the suited man was forced to nod in agreement. He stood as far from the two animals as he could. Don't let them start fighting. You'll be responsible if anything happens to them, Yuan added. President, if they really start fighting and I can't hold them back, what should I do? The suited man asked when he saw Yuan leaving. Then come find me ASAP. Yuan left the office after saying that. The conference room on the 5th floor, an elderly man and several young men and women had been waiting inside the conference room for a long time. The leader was around 60 years old. He wasn't young, but he looked full of energy and didn't appear old at all. The young people standing next to the elderly man all had their hands behind their backs with aloof expressions and an extraordinary aura. Soon, Yuan entered the conference room, accompanied by Big Dipper and 7 Star. Yuan was walking in the front while Big Dipper and 7 Star followed behind on her left and right sides. Elder Jean, our president is here. Big Dipper announced while looking at the elderly man. The elderly man, Elder Jean, lightly nodded upon hearing that but merely glanced at Yuan without any intention of speaking. At Elder Jin's signal, a young man in black sneered and said, "We've heard your name for a long time. What an honor to meet you today. Unfortunately, this meeting doesn't live up to your reputation." Big Dipper's brows furrowed slightly, but Yuan was there, so there wasn't room for him to talk. Yuan's lips turned up into a bewitching smile. What a high and mighty front the Martial Arts Union had. They wanted to take her a notch down as soon as they met. Yuan naturally didn't hold any fear toward the Martial Arts Union since she wasn't the actual president of the Fearless Alliance. Chapter 1339 Yuan coldly looked at the man in black. Who the hell are you? Who said you could talk here? You, the man in black's expression changed. Heh. The Martial Arts Union, huh? How ridiculous. Yuan looked at Elder Jean and said, "Your Martial Arts Union represents the official power of the independent state. Don't merely focus on minding external business, you should remember to also improve the quality of your internal departments." the martial arts union strays seriously lack etiquette. Yi Wanwan might be talking with a poisonous tongue, but she was helpless inside. She also didn't want to insult the martial arts union, alright? Big Dipper could be ignored, but 7-Star was next to her and watching her every move. She was forced to insult them. At that time, the martial arts union could blame the true president of the Fearless Alliance if they wanted. By phone, who the hell are you? How dare you speak so rudely to the martial arts union? Even Azura from back then wouldn't do that, let alone you. By phone, I'm telling you, put away the front you're showing to the outside. You acting arrogantly and fearlessly is an utter joke to us, a sweet-looking woman harshly shouted out of nowhere. Who the hell am I? Yi Wanwan snorted and dryly said, 7-Star, tell her who I am. The president of the Fearless Alliance, 7-Star replied. Yi Wanwan nodded and slowly walked to the sweet-looking woman. Before anyone could react, she lifted her hand and mercilessly slapped the woman's face. Slap. The crisp sound took everyone by surprise. There were quite a few junior and senior management members from the Fearless Alliance inside the conference room. When they saw their president slapping a member of the martial arts union without demur, they seriously jumped in fright. However, this wasn't a surprise. It would be reasonable even if the president suddenly drew out a saber and hacked that woman to death, let alone a mere slap. This was the president's modus operandi indeed. You, the sweet-looking woman clutched the left side of her face, frightening malice surfacing in her eyes. Who the hell are you? You're bringing out Azura and Lord Azura to frighten me? When I led the siege on Azura back then, who knew where you were? Were you playing with mud? Get out of my sight. Yi Wanwan shouted coldly. Yi Wanwan turned to 7-Star before the woman could react. Throw her out. 7-Star briskly complied and wordlessly approached the woman. He grabbed her by the lapels and forcefully flung her out of the conference room. A loud boom was heard as the woman crashed onto the floor outside. President Bai, you're too insolent. Several members of the martial arts union coldly shouted immediately. Insolent? Yi Wanwan snorted. This is the headquarters of the Fearless Alliance. Even the heads of the 4 great clans would have to speak to me nicely if they came here, let alone clowns like you. Remember, I don't care whether you can call the wind and summon the rain in the independent state. In my Fearless Alliance, coil up if you're a dragon and lay down if you're a tiger. Yi Wanwan ignored the members of the martial arts union after saying that and turned to Elder Jean. With a faint smile, she asked, Elder Jean, may I ask why you came here to talk to me today? There's no harm in telling me. Elder Jean slowly looked up with a dry smile on his face. Rumors say that the president of the Fearless Alliance fears nothing, not even the heavens, and even the 4 great clans are unwilling to provoke you. It appears the rumors aren't false. However, Yi Wanwan's brows furrowed slightly when she saw Elder Jin's face clearly. Her head felt like it exploded abruptly as several blurry memories surfaced in her mind. For some reason, she felt like she had seen this person somewhere before. Chapter 1340, 1340. The fragments of memory that flickered in Yi Wanwan's mind were very blurry. In those fragments, aside from Elder Jean, several faces that struck fear inside of her also appeared. Her mind was very instinctively resistant toward these memories, and that explosive pain grew more intense. Sis Feng, 7-Star spoke up when he sensed something amiss in Yi Wanwan's expression. Yi Wanwan took a deep breath and swiftly controlled her emotions. The fragments of memory just now were too blurry, so she merely felt an instinctive fear. However, she couldn't recall just what was it that caused such fear. Yi Wanwan was clueless. Yi Wanwan sneered at Elder Jean. Elder Jean, logically speaking, since you came to the Fearless Alliance, I, by phone, should welcome you as the host today. However, there are too many bothersome matters in the Fearless Alliance lately, so speak frankly, Elder Jean. Don't waste both of our valuable time. Okay. Elder Jin's gaze landed on Yi Wanwan, and confusion surfaced in his eyes after a brief assessment. Although he had heard the president of the Fearless Alliance's name, by phone, before, their first meeting was today. For some reason though, he found this woman a bit familiar, as though they had met before. However, Elder Jean didn't think too deeply about it. This woman was the president of the Fearless Alliance, after all. Perhaps he met her somewhere before she left the independent state. President Bai, I'll speak openly then. Elder Jean calmly looked at Yuan. Are you familiar with the Zhou family, President Bai? Somewhat familiar, Yuan said. When she first came to the independent state, she would have ended up homeless on the streets if it weren't for the Zhou family, so she did owe the Zhou family to a certain degree. All right. Elder Jean nodded. I heard that President Bai used a firearm in the Zhou residence that day. Big Dipper and the other senior management of the Fearless Alliance were shocked at Elder Jin's words. Firearms were clearly prohibited in the independent state. This rule was established by the 4 great clans instead of the martial arts union, and none of the other rules in the independent state ever conflicted with that rule. The reason the independent state was able to develop until now without any interference and disturbance from other countries was precisely because the people in the independent state found using firearms disdainful and would never use firearms. Once a power started using firearms, it would become the entire independent state's public enemy without a question. The president of the Fearless Alliance didn't dare to use firearms even at the peak of the Fearless Alliance back then. This wasn't because Bro Flattop was afraid, it was because she respected the independent state and didn't wish to become enemies with the entire independent state. The current Yuan thoroughly understood the independent state's rules and knew without anyone telling her that the rules implied not using firearms. She also knew that even the real Bro Flattop wouldn't dare to use firearms, let alone a counterfeit like her. Hence, how could Yuan admit a heinous crime like using a firearm so easily? Ha! Yuan looked at the expressionless Elder Jean and lightly chuckled. Elder Jean, you can eat things carelessly, but you can't say things carelessly. You're saying I used a firearm, what proof do you have though? Chapter 1341 7 stars slowly turned to look at Yuan. Quite a few people personally witnessed Yuan using a firearm at the Zhou residence back then. Although the majority of people didn't dare to speak carelessly about the Fearless Alliance, someone would eventually tell this kind of thing to the Martial Arts Union. President Bai. Elder Jean turned to Yuan. Hundreds of people clearly saw you using a firearm at the Zhou residence. Walls have ears in the independent state. The Martial Arts Union naturally knows what you did. When you used a firearm at the Zhou residence, a few members of our Martial Arts Union's investigation team witnessed it. Why would our Martial Arts Union frame you for this matter? Elder Jean is referring to us. It was us who personally witnessed President Bai using a firearm. It's true, we even recorded a video from that day, a certain man calmly spoke up from behind Elder Jean. After saying that, the man pulled up a video on his phone, and everyone could clearly see the contents of the video. Yuan was holding a gun in front of the Zhou residence. So what if my president pointed a gun at me? I'm happy to have a gun pointed at me, I like having a gun pointed at me. Who told you to mind my own business? The elderly man, who Yuan pointed a gun at outside the Zhou residence that day, suddenly stepped forward and coldly shouted. Oh! A certain member of the Martial Arts Union looked at the elderly man and snorted. Li Gongchen, you're rather masochistic to like having a gun pointed at your head. Li Gongchen disdainfully said, so what if this old man likes to have the president pointing her gun at my head? That's the Fearless Alliance's internal affairs, what business is it of yours? So you're admitting President Bai used a firearm and pointed the gun at you? Elder Jean calmly asked Li Gongchen. Li Gongchen was taken back. He looked at Yuan and looked at Elder Jean again. Yuan could only sigh inwardly at this scene. What kind of freaking pig teammate was this? Originally, Yuan could stubbornly deny it even if the Martial Arts Union had a video, but didn't Li Gongchen's words confirm her crime of using a gun? I never admitted that. Li Gongchen vehemently shook his head under Elder Jin's inquiry. Since you never admitted it, then please explain why you said President Bai pointed a gun at you and you like the feeling of having a gun pointed at you a lot. Elder Jean said. A sullen feeling rose in Li Gongchen's eyes. He clenched his fists and angrily said, "Fine, it's my gun. I gave it to the president for safekeeping. Blame me if you want to condemn someone. It has nothing to do with the president." "Fine, Li Gongchen, it's fine if you admit it. Take him away," a young man said behind Elder Jean. They never thought they could take away the president of the Fearless Alliance on this trip. Taking a scapegoat and finishing the mission would be enough. A few members of the martial arts union swiftly dashed forward, about to drag Li Gongchen outside. "Your martial arts union is truly brazen. You dare to take away brothers of my Fearless Alliance at my headquarters." A bewitching smile turned up on Yi Wanwan's lips. "I can allow the martial arts union to take Li Gongchen away, but whether the brothers behind me are willing, I can't guarantee it." Chapter 1342, 1342. The junior and senior management in the conference room all rushed forward like a wave and stood in front of Li Gongchen. "The martial arts union wants to take someone away from the Fearless Alliance like this? Aren't you overestimating yourselves?" coldly shouted an elderly man with silver hair wearing an impeccable suit. "Hee. No one has dared to behave so atrociously in the Fearless Alliance's territory in its history." A young man chuckled eerily, a bloodthirsty craze surfacing in his eyes. "If you want to fight, the Fearless Alliance has never been afraid of anyone. Whoever dares to take Li Gongchen away, I'll fuck your mother. Step over my dead body first." "Ha ha ha. Martial Arts Union, don't be too arrogant. Our cis phone has never been afraid of anyone, whether it's Emperor Ji, piece of shit, Lord Azura, the four great clans of the independent state, or a stray animal. When has our president ever cowered?" Big Dipper loudly guffawed and shoved several members of the martial arts union to the side. This scene caused the people from the martial arts union to frown. Li Gongchen looked at Yi Wanwan, his eyes wet. He wanted to say something but didn't end up saying anything. He was proud he was able to become a member of the Fearless Alliance. It was worth it even if he died today, since he had such a good president. "Look." Yi Wanwan's smile remained wide. "See, it's not that I'm unwilling to let you take Li Gongchen away. But my brothers have a temper and personality, even I can't manage them as their president. Is that so?" Elder Jean glanced indifferently at Yi Wanwan and said dryly, "From the looks of it, it's because President Bai doesn't have a strict enough reputation. It's fine though. Since you can't manage your subordinates well, President Bai, our martial arts union can manage them for you." Yi Wanwan snorted inwardly. As expected, this old guy managed to advance to being an elder of the martial arts union, so he was a real piece of work. "Then Elder Jean doesn't plan on sparing Li Gongchen?" Yi Wanwan asked softly. "Li Gongchen committed a wrong and broke the rules, so he naturally has to be punished. Even the heads of the four great clans would have to accept punishment if they broke the rules, not to mention Li Gongchen," Elder Jean replied aloofly. The entire independent state strongly disliked the usage of firearms. Like Elder Jean said, even the heads of the four great clans would become the entire independent state's enemy if they used firearms. However, Yi Wanwan just chuckled lightly. "Elder Jean, I can't agree with you. It's true that the independent state prohibits the use of firearms, but why must you be so serious about a toy gun?" "A toy gun?" Everyone present was shocked. Yi Wanwan took the phone from the martial arts union member and pointed at the video. "Elder Jean, you might be old, but your eyes should still be able to see. No bullets came out when the trigger of the gun was pulled. It was merely a toy gun." Yi Wanwan's words were the incontestable truth. Hundreds of eyes saw her pulling the trigger, but no bullets shot out. It wasn't an overstatement to call a gun without any potential to harm a toy gun. "Heh. President Bai, what evidence do you have to prove that gun was a toy gun?" Elder Jean asked as he looked away from the video. Chapter 1343, Then Elder Jean, what evidence do you have to prove that gun was a real gun? Was someone injured? Or did you find a bullet? If Elder Jean has proof, then the Fearless Alliance will take care of Li Gongchen ourselves faster than your martial arts union. Yi Wanwan's lips turned up. You, the member of the martial arts union who recorded that video, fumed with rage between gritted teeth. Bai Feng, the president of the Fearless Alliance, was too good at words. And they couldn't refute this excuse at all. Since no one was hurt by the gun and you didn't find a bullet. Elder Jean, you didn't even clearly investigate the truth yet rashly came to my Fearless Alliance to denounce us for a non-existent crime and wanted to arrest people. Shouldn't Elder Jean and the martial arts union give me an explanation? Yi Wanwan snorted. Elder Jean frowned slightly. Rumors of Bro Flat Top merely said she was arrogant, imperious, and fearless, but he didn't expect her to be so quick-witted and eloquent. This didn't match the rumors. Elder Jean chose to stop haggling about this matter and said aloofly, let's forget about that for now. Let's talk business. Yi Wanwan was pensive when she heard Elder Jin's words. This old geezer would probably use the previous accusation as the bedrock for this supposed official business. As for what it was, she had a feeling it wasn't anything good. Ha, Elder Jean, let's get to the bottom of this matter first. Yi Wanwan snorted. Your martial arts union came spewing accusations at the Fearless Alliance before clearly investigating everything. If you don't give me an explanation today, how would that affect the Fearless Alliance's standing in the independent state? The people from the Fearless Alliance all looked at each other. The president of the Fearless Alliance was truly daring, she got the upper hand already but still flaunted it. Not only did she successfully clear her crime of using a gun, but she still wanted the martial arts union to give her an explanation. Oh. Then may I ask what you want, President Bai? Elder Jean asked Yi Wanwan with a light chuckle. Elder Jean, you've gotten muddle-headed with age. If someone has committed a wrong, they should apologize, Yi Wanwan said. The members of the martial arts union's faces all shifted. She wanted them to apologize. Good, President Bai is frank and straightforward as expected. It was the martial arts union's fault for not thoroughly investigating the matter first. Elder Jean told a young man behind him. Apologize already. This young man was the one who recorded Yi Wanwan using a gun with his phone. The young man gnashed his teeth before turning to look at Yi Wanwan eventually. I'm very sorry, President Bai. You should apologize to Li Gongchen, Yi Wanwan said aloofly. Fine, the young man turned to Li Gongchen. I'm sorry. Humph. Li Gongchen snorted. Punk, brighten your vision next time. You can't even differentiate between a toy gun and a real gun. What trash. Blah. Li Gongchen spat at the young man. The young man tightly clenched his fists but didn't say a word. Elder Jean had to have a reason for making him apologize. All right, President, we should talk official business now, Elder Jean said. Speak, Yi Wanwan replied nonchalantly. Does President Bai still remember Azura? Elder Jean chuckled lightly. Yi Wanwan's brows furrowed lightly. Why did this old geezer mention Azura? How the heck would she remember? Of course I remember. What do you mean, Elder Jean? Why don't you speak frankly? Yi Wanwan calmly said. Chapter 1344 Elder Jean dryly examined Yi Wanwan before chuckling lightly and said, Of course President Bai remembers. It was President Bai who led the Fearless Alliance and joined the plan to eradicate Azura back then. You worked the hardest too. Yi Wanwan was silent. This old geezer was telling the truth. President Bai should know that Azura has recently resurged from the dead. Rumors say that Lord Azura has returned. I think President could take advantage of Azura's weak period and strike a fatal blow, Elder Jean said to Yi Wanwan. Heh. Elder Jean, I'm afraid you didn't honor us with your visit today because of the gun matter, right? The main objective was Azura, am I right? Yi Wanwan snorted. Elder Jean didn't refute this. President Bai, you should know that it was you who was the first to lead the eradication of Azura. Now that Lord Azura has returned and Azura has resurged from the dead, they probably aren't that friendly toward President Bai and the Fearless Alliance. President Bai should plan while you still can, Elder Jean advised. Yi Wanwan called Elder Jean an old fox inside her mind. The Martial Arts Union was the official faction of the independent state, and Azura didn't do anything that violated the independent state's principles, so even the Martial Arts Union didn't have the right to repress Azura. However, Azura's power was too enormous and Lord Azura was arrogant, unyielding, and unruly. He ignored the Martial Arts Union completely, offending the Martial Arts Union's ego. The Martial Arts Union wouldn't destroy Azura themselves. Instead, they would instigate other factions to do it for them. Yi Wanwan had a basic understanding of the animosity between Azura and the Fearless Alliance. During Azura's most prosperous period, many factions of the independent state had to offer a tribute every month, and the Fearless Alliance was no exception. However, Bro Flattop became furious and killed the Azura members who came asking for a tribute. And so, the feud between the two was formed. Hence, back when the Martial Arts Union launched a plan to eradicate Azura, the Fearless Alliance agreed to it without any hesitation. Yi Wanwan didn't know what happened afterward though. Why should I agree to this? What benefit will the Fearless Alliance and I get from this? Yi Wanwan said with a faint smile. The Martial Arts Union can send people to assist the Fearless Alliance and President Bai, Elder Jean replied. Just that. Yi Wanwan snorted. It's you, the Martial Arts Union, who wants to destroy Azura, so it's warranted for you to provide money, power, and people. That doesn't count. President, you probably offended piece of shit, right? Elder Jean switched the topic suddenly and said meaningfully. I'm sure President Bai knows what kind of person piece of shit is, even the ancient clans fear piece of shit to an extent. The Fearless Alliance is nobody in piece of shit's eyes. If President Bai agrees, our Martial Arts Union can mediate between you two and make sure piece of shit doesn't cause trouble for President Bai and the Fearless Alliance. Big Dipper snorted before Yi Wanwan could say anything. Bluff all you want. If you're really that capable, you should get piece of shit to attack Azura instead. Even Azura in its peak period might not dare to provoke piece of shit. Why did you come looking for us? Piece of shit could eliminate an entire army by himself. It was a truth publicly recognized in the independent state that piece of shit was unmatched. Chapter 1345. Of course, the independent state alone wasn't enough to describe piece of shit's prowess though. In piece of shit's own words, there wasn't anyone in this world who was his match. The Martial Arts Union might be the official faction of the independent state, but they would also suffer if they backed piece of shit into a dead end. Heh. President Bai doesn't need to worry about that. Our Martial Arts Union naturally has our methods, Elder Jean said with a chuckle. Elder Jean, you probably misunderstood something. Our Fearless Alliance has never been afraid of anyone, including piece of shit. As for how piece of shit's name reverberated throughout the independent state, I think Elder Jean should know this well, Yi Wanwan said disdainfully. If the president of the Fearless Alliance was really afraid of piece of shit, why would she publicize piece of shit's nickname far and wide? Even now, no one in the independent state knew piece of shit's real name and only called him piece of shit. President Bai. You accepted a few outsiders. Do you really think the Martial Arts Union doesn't know? Elder Jean chuckled coldly. The rules of the independent state weren't established just by our Martial Arts Union, it also includes the 4 great clans and some secret factions. If President Bai really wants to break this rule, it's no big deal if something happens to yourself, but I'm afraid you'll drag your brothers down with you. Elder Jean chuckled. Of course, if President Bai agrees, our Martial Arts Union will act as the authority on this matter and give those people a permit for the independent state, allowing them to become residents of the independent state. We can end the matter like that. How about it? Yi Wanwan was brimming with jealousy from Elder Jin's words. I also want a permit for the independent state. If she had the permit, why would she need to pretend to be the president of the Fearless Alliance? Her heart wouldn't be raised to her throat all day, and she wouldn't roll at night sleeplessly anymore. Heh. Elder Jean, I can agree to your request, but agreeing doesn't mean I was successfully threatened by you. It's because we do have animosities with Azura. How about this, aside from the aforementioned terms, your martial arts union will provide 3 times the manpower and money and will assist us to your best ability when needed. Otherwise, case dismissed, Yi Wanwan negotiated. What? 3 times the manpower and money? Some of the martial arts union members standing behind Elder Jean looked at each other, bewildered. The outside world said that the president of the Fearless Alliance was avaricious in nature and would rob money when she lacked it. Even the extremely wealthy Shen family, one of the 4 great clans, was once robbed by her. It appeared there was some truth to those rumors. 3 times. President Bai is truly demanding an exorbitant price. Elder Jean looked at Yi Wanwan meaningfully. He invited many factions into this plan to destroy Azura, but the Fearless Alliance was the hardest to coax and the darkest and craftiest faction. There had never been a faction who dared to negotiate with the martial arts union like this. Fine, I'll agree to your terms, President. Triple the amount of manpower and money, Elder Jean finally nodded and complied. Okay, hurry. The manpower isn't urgent, but send the money to me first. Remember, everything is null if you're missing a single thing, Yi Wanwan said. Ha, Elder Jean chuckled lightly. Don't worry, President Bai. Since we agreed to your terms, we definitely won't renege on them. I'll excuse myself now that we're done discussing official business. Then Elder Jean led the members of the martial arts union out of the conference room. Big Dipper turned to Yi Wanwan in surprise. Sis Feng. I feel like you're more arrogant since your return. Back then, you would merely demand double the amount when you asked for money from the martial arts union. This time, you actually demanded triple. Yi Wanwan glanced at Big Dipper. Who knew how much prices have risen since then? I merely increased it a fraction. Chapter 1346 Big Dipper was rendered speechless by Yi Wanwan's explanation. She sounded very logical. Sis Feng, are we really gonna cause trouble for Azura? But, if the martial arts union provides us with the money and manpower, we can consider it since Lord Azura just returned and Azura hasn't returned to its peak yet, Big Dipper quietly said to Yi Wanwan. The members of the Fearless Alliance present all nodded in approval of Big Dipper's words. 'Cause what trouble? We'll take the money first and discuss it later. Yi Wanwan glanced at them. Sis Feng, you aren't planning on embezzling the martial arts union's money and doing nothing, right? Our Fearless Alliance might have a bad reputation, but we're renowned for our credibility. Look, our 7-kill order declares that any faction who receives it will be destroyed within 7 days and not even a god could save them. This 7-kill order relies on trust. If we took the money but didn't act as promised and reneged on our word, it would be bad for our reputation, right? Big Dipper turned to Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan was startled. What the heck did he mean by being trustworthy? How the heck does destroying someone's clan have anything to do with credibility? Who said our Fearless Alliance isn't trustworthy? Yi Wanwan glanced at Big Dipper. Which of your ears heard I was planning to do nothing? Big Dipper looked bewildered. Then Sis Feng means, I merely promised the martial arts union I'd attack. Did I say when I'll attack? Yi Wanwan asked coldly. I don't think so. Big Dipper automatically shook his head. Since I didn't say when I'll attack, why are we in such a hurry? If I'm in a bad mood, I don't have to attack for 10 or 20 years. Yi Wanwan snorted. Then Sis Feng, are you in a bad mood right now? Big Dipper inquired. I am. Yi Wanwan glanced at Big Dipper. Big Dipper relaxed when he heard that. That's good. I say, we should wait 20 years before attacking Azura. Yi Wanwan didn't respond to that. Anyway, she wasn't the president of the Fearless Alliance. She'd first extort the money from the martial arts union, then the martial arts union wouldn't be able to find her when they looked for her later. The one who extorted their money was the president of the Fearless Alliance, not her. Meeting adjourned. Yuanwan waved her hand and turned to leave. A moment later, Yuanwan returned to the office. The man who Yuanwan arranged to watch over Virus and Great White hadn't left yet. He stood as quiet as a cicada in winter by the side, his eyes not daring to move a millimeter away from Virus and Great White. "President, you're finally back." "Ah, President," the man looked like he was reuniting with his long-lost parents when he saw Yuanwan entering the office, excitement brimming on his face. "Virus and Great White didn't start fighting, right?" Yuanwan asked. The man shook his head frantically. "No. They didn't start fighting. I'd definitely accomplish any task the president assigned to me. Although Virus and that white tiger are ferocious and nearly started fighting a few times, they were intimidated by me. They wouldn't dare to fight with me present." However, just as the man finished speaking, Virus and Great White turned to look at the man in a rare moment of synchronicity, as though they understood the man's words. Are all the members of the Fearless Alliance so good at bragging? Who did they learn it from? "President, if there's nothing else, I'll be taking my leave now." The man looked embarrassed. Yuanwan waved her hand, allowing the man to leave. Chapter 1347. After the office door closed, Yuanwan sprinted to Great White and grabbed him, lavishing him with affection. Great White looked a bit exasperated and merely lay in his spot silently. However, at that point, Virus pushed Yuanwan's back with a paw, his large, black eyes intently staring at her. "Little Black is good," Yuanwan happily said as she started scratching Little Black's chin. Virus' eyes were narrowed as his head raised, pure enjoyment on his face. After petting Virus and Great White, Yuanwan finally let them go. Immediately, Virus stood up while Great White remained silently laying in his spot, unmoving, but Great White's eyes were locked onto Virus. Virus stretched before imposingly striding over to Great White and laying down in front of Great White. However, Virus was facing Great White with his butt. This scene rendered Yuanwan speechless. Virus was probably announcing his authority to Great White and telling this tiger this place was his territory, so he was the boss. Great White didn't have any desire to pay attention to Virus though. He merely turned his head to the side. Anyway, it was good that Virus and Great White didn't start fighting. This territory belonged to Virus to begin with, so he should be allowed to play boss as he pleased. Yuanwan sat down on her office chair and sunk into contemplation. She still had too many things to do, but she couldn't mobilize the Fearless Alliance's core power right now. It was unrealistic for her to use the Fearless Alliance's core power to search for Si Yihan. Moreover, it would elicit the suspicion of 7-Star and Emperor Ji, as well as those old geezers in the Fearless Alliance. If only she could build a power that solely belonged to her. Of course, it was a good plan, but implementing it wouldn't be easy. Yuanwan knew that by pretending to be Bai Feng in the Fearless Alliance, she could die horribly with no hope of salvation if she was the slightest bit careless. Additionally, her position was too passive. Today, the martial arts union came looking for trouble. Tomorrow, piece of shit would come looking for trouble. In a few days, the 4 great clans would probably also come looking for trouble. What would she do if this continued? However, based on the current situation, she was extorting a large sum of money from the martial arts union and the Fearless Alliance was rich to begin with. In her position as the president of the Fearless Alliance, it shouldn't be difficult for her to mobilize some funds. If she used someone else's money to create her own power. Sis Feng. Before Yuanwan could think anymore, Big Dipper's voice was heard from outside the door. Yuanwan packed away her thoughts and restored her aloof facade. Enter. Big Dipper opened the door and entered, walking toward Yuanwan. Sis Feng, are you free tonight? Let's go party. It's been a while since we've partied. Yuanwan glanced at Big Dipper. Party your ass. Party where? Yuanwan inquired. A new place opened up lately. I heard there's a lot of new items there, Big Dipper laughed mischievously. This isn't another strange and exotic restaurant, right? Where they'll make me eat fried ants. I'll leave it to you and 7-Star to arrange it, Yi Wanwan said. I promise. Big Dipper turned to leave. Hold on. Yi Wanwan stopped Big Dipper. Let's build a small park here. Big Dipper froze in his spot. Build a park. What do you mean? A residence for Great White and Virus, Yi Wanwan replied matter-of-factly. Big Dipper was astonished. Sis Feng, isn't it too extravagant to build a park for 2 wild beasts? This is utterly. Oh, right, I think the 7th floor is quite nice. There's a lot of light and space. It's perfect to be turned into an indoor park. Yi Wanwan. Chapter 1348. Yi Wanwan was thinking of an outdoor park. Big Dipper had an even better idea. He wanted to renovate the 7th floor, however. Sis Feng, the 7th floor is the Elder's territory, you should think it over carefully. Of course, if you insist on renovating it, Big Dipper chuckled mischievously. Yi Wanwan's lips twitched. What did I say? Who was it that wanted to renovate the 7th floor this whole time? It's fine, Yi Wanwan said calmly. The entire Fearless Alliance is mine. Are you saying I need to ask for the Elder's permission to change something in my own territory? I'll leave this task to you. Help me renovate the 7th floor, directly go to the finance department to approve the expense. Big Dipper's face changed when he heard that. Leaving this task to him. Wasn't this the same as telling him to offend those old geezers? However, Yi Wanwan said her piece, so Big Dipper naturally couldn't refute it. Big Dipper wished nothing more than to ruthlessly slap himself. Why did I run my mouth off? Alright. Sis Feng, then. I'll go do that now if there's nothing else, Big Dipper sighed and said dispiritedly. Go on, go on. Yi Wanwan waved her hand, telling Big Dipper to get out of her sight. Yi Wanwan went to engage in another round of petting Virus and Great White after Big Dipper left. However, a moment later, Yi Wanwan's phone started ringing suddenly. Yi Wanwan was startled when she saw the caller ID. Big Dipper gave this phone and number to her when she first joined the Fearless Alliance. Only a few people aside from Big Dipper and 7-Star knew this number. Yi Wanwan answered the phone and coldly said, Speak. Is this Doormaster? An indifferent and laid-back voice was heard from the other end. Which dumb fool was calling and asking if she was the president? Rubbish. Yi Wanwan coldly asked, Which department are you? A moment of silence occurred. What do you mean? What do I mean? Yi Wanwan's lips twitched. Who are you? Ishui Han, the indifferent voice answered. What? Piece of shit. Yi Wanwan was in shock and disbelief when she learned the other person's identity. Thinking back on it, piece of shit called her Doormaster, not president. And no. Lord shit. I mean, Knight Errant E, it's you. Why are you suddenly free today, Knight Errant E? Yi Wanwan's icy smile instantly disappeared without a trace. Yi Wanwan suddenly recalled that she exchanged phone numbers with piece of shit at the casino that night. However, she never expected piece of shit to call her out of his own initiative. She'd nearly forgotten about this matter. Business, piece of shit said aloofly. Knight Errant E, what business? Yi Wanwan's brows furrowed slightly at piece of shit's words. Could it be that piece of shit discovered her identity? I'll give you an address. We'll talk when you arrive. Piece of shit hung up the phone immediately after saying that. Yi Wanwan was dumbfounded as she listened to the busy tone on the other end of the phone. He didn't give me the address yet. Yi Wanwan quickly sent piece of shit a text message, telling him to give her his address. Yi Wanwan sunk into silence when she saw the address in the message. Should she go by herself to see this top-level boss of the independent state or bring a large team? After pondering over it for a long time, Yi Wanwan decided to go by herself. Chapter 1349. 1349. Back then, Bro Flattop laid down a trap and planned to trick piece of shit but ended up tricking herself instead. The advantage in numbers seemed to be useless against piece of shit. Yi Wanwan had no choice but to drive alone toward the address sent by piece of shit. What was most troublesome was that the independent state didn't have any map navigations, so who knew how many wrong turns she had taken. Yi Wanwan finally managed to reach the destination close to evening. After getting out of the car, Yi Wanwan assessed her surroundings, confusion surfacing on her face. This place looks a little familiar, like. Yi Wanwan's face suddenly shifted. Isn't this place near my haunted mansion? Miss Yi. Piece of shit's voice was heard behind her. Yi Wanwan reflexively turned around. His long, ink-colored hair fell to his waist, and his athletic tracksuit gave him a very casual appearance, but when it was paired with his face, it could seriously make people want to shriek. Too freaking beautiful. How could a grown man look so beautiful? If piece of shit wore women's clothes, he would simply be perfect aside from the fact that his chest was flat. Lord shit, Yi Wanwan hastily received him with a smile when she saw piece of shit walking toward her. Piece of shit's brows furrowed slightly at Yi Wanwan's form of address. Lord shit, may I ask, why did you call me here? Yi Wanwan asked with a grin. Piece of shit looked at Yi Wanwan and dryly said, no need to be so polite, Miss Wanwan. You can just call me Yi Shuehan. She actually forgot about this part. Piece of shit didn't like this nickname, but, what did this have to do with politeness? Let's go to my house, piece of shit quietly said. Go to your house, Yi Wanwan was startled. Piece of shit and I are freaking neighbors. Actual freaking neighbors. A moment later, Yi Wanwan followed piece of shit to a place near the haunted mansion. When they passed by Yi Wanwan's haunted mansion, piece of shit suddenly stopped and pointed at the mansion. This is a haunted house, a dismemberment case happened there before. There's probably a ghost inside. Can you freaking talk humanese? What freaking ghost? I live there, okay? Yeah. It's pretty scary, but aren't ghosts too unscientific? There probably aren't any, Yi Wanwan said with an awkward chuckle. Piece of shit looked at Yi Wanwan. Too many unscientific things happened. I saw a ghost there with my own eyes. You're at least the highest and most frightening boss in the independent state. Is it really okay for you to patter on nonsensically while looking so earnest? Although Yi Wanwan was scared of ghosts, she knew ghosts didn't exist in this world. But when piece of shit claimed there was a ghost inside with such a serious expression, how the heck was she supposed to continue living there? Lord shit, let's talk business instead. Yi Wanwan helplessly smiled. She really didn't want to continue with this topic of a haunted house. Soon, the two of them arrived at a house near the haunted mansion under piece of shit's lead. It was rather coincidental. This house was located behind the haunted mansion. If Yi Wanwan stood on the top floor of the mansion, she could clearly see this place from the window. As Yi Wanwan examined this place, she noticed something unusual about the house. There wasn't a door. Chapter 1350. Yi Wanwan suddenly understood why piece of shit reached out to her as she looked at this doorless mansion. Someone tried to assassinate me earlier and accidentally broke the door when they attacked, piece of shit explained to Yi Wanwan. Assassinate you? Yi Wanwan wanted to laugh. It turned out this top-level boss could also be the target of an assassination. However, I feel like my assassins most likely went to the wrong place. Piece of shit glanced at the nearby haunted mansion. They probably wanted to assassinate the owner of the haunted mansion but went to the wrong place. Although Yi Wanwan wanted to choke piece of shit to death, his words caused her to sink into contemplation. If piece of shit's words were true, didn't that mean someone wanted to assassinate her? She seemed to have only offended third elderly C in the independent state. Yi Wanwan didn't take it too seriously though. After all, no assassins could commit such a low-level mistake and not even figure out their victim's correct address. So, Lord Shit wants me to help you change the door? Yi Wanwan asked piece of shit slowly. Aren't you the doormaster? I'm unfamiliar with this area, so help me get a large and secure door, piece of shit requested her. Yu Wanwan was at a loss for words. The hell was she a door master? What would she know about secure doors? Alright, I'll try my best. Yu Wanwan was forced to nod in agreement. It was a hole that she dug herself, after all. I want it as soon as possible. I can pick it up from your store too, piece of shit said. Don't. I mean, it's fine. We have a delivery service. After I choose one for you tomorrow, I'll have a worker deliver it and help you install it. Yu Wanwan's lips twitched. What freaking store did she have? Alright. Piece of shit nodded. Miss Yi, come inside and have a seat. Lord shit, it's fine, Yu Wanwan shook her head. She didn't have any time. She still had to freaking buy a door for piece of shit. Let's eat a casual meal together. Piece of shit turned and entered the doorless house. Yu Wanwan lightly sighed and had no choice but to follow piece of shit inside. Piece of shit's residence was very simple. Besides a few chairs and desks, there wasn't anything else inside the large room. I'll go make the food. Feel free to have a look around, piece of shit told Yu Wanwan. Yu Wanwan was startled when she heard that. This legendary boss actually knew how to cook. What a homely man. Do you eat meat, Miss Wanwan? Piece of shit asked. I do. Yu Wanwan nodded vehemently. Oh. But I don't have any. I've been eating vegetarian recently. Piece of shit turned to enter the kitchen. Then why did you freaking ask whether I ate meat? After piece of shit entered the kitchen, Yu Wanwan looked around the house. Piece of shit's residence was rather nice and spacious but was rather lifeless. Although the house was clean and organized, some simple decorations would make it look a lot better. A photo hung on the nearby wall. The person in the photo bore some similarities to Yu Wanwan in appearance and looked exquisite. A moment later, Yu Wanwan sat down on the sofa and couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Piece of shit and she were actually neighbors. Being neighbors with such a legendary boss was rather stressful. Chapter 1351. About half an hour later, piece of shit served the food on the dining table. Yu Wanwan glanced at it. They were vegetarian dishes, but they looked quite appetizing. She didn't expect a boss like him to have good cooking skills. Miss Yi, please help yourself, piece of shit said to Yu Wanwan as he sat down at the table. Yu Wanwan didn't hold back and started eating. What freaking good cooking skills. Yu Wanwan swore she'd rather eat fried ants. Aside from looking good, these dishes weren't good at all. It was absolutely unbearable to swallow. Lord shit, is that your wife? Yu Wanwan glanced at the series of photos nearby. Piece of shit glanced at the photos as well and aloofly said, that's my mother. Mother passed away a long time ago. Your personality is a bit similar to my mother's, piece of shit said after surveying Yu Wanwan a few times. Yu Wanwan was startled. Similar in personality, is he referring to how I protected him back at the casino? Lord shit, you must know a lot of things with your identity, right? Yu Wanwan asked meaningfully. About what? Piece of shit asked as he ate the incredibly awful food. Lord shit must be quite familiar with the Fearless Alliance, right? I heard Lord shit's nickname was given by the president of the Fearless Alliance. Yu Wanwan probed furtively. Piece of shit was taken aback when he heard that. I think she's called by phone. Piece of shit shook his head. I'm not familiar with her. Shit, what a great nonchalant, I'm not familiar with her. The president of the Fearless Alliance schemed in every way she could to challenge piece of shit and ended up on the ground after a fierce beating from piece of shit. Now, it turned out piece of shit was utterly unfamiliar with Bro Flat Top and hadn't retained any memories of her, nor did he attach any importance to her. Then, does Lord shit know about the faction, Azura? Yu Wanwan continued to ask. I've heard of them. Piece of shit nodded and looked at Yu Wanwan. Why's a door seller like you so interested in these factions of the independent state? Yu Wanwan explained with a smile, Lord shit, it's not like that. I conduct a business, isn't it normal for me to learn about these factions of the independent state? Piece of shit nodded. It sounded rather logical. A faction like Azura is considered top-notch in the independent state. They're decent, piece of shit said. Look at this freaking difference between his reactions. When I asked him about the president of the Fearless Alliance, he was utterly unfamiliar. When I asked about Azura, he immediately replied in recognition. Lord Azura should know about Lord Azura too, right? Yi Wanwan hastily added. The president of the Fearless Alliance and Lord Azura were great enemies, so Yi Wanwan wanted to obtain all the knowledge she could about Lord Azura. I've heard of him. Piece of shit nodded. Then. Is Lord Azura very strong? How does he compare to the Fearless Alliance? Yi Wanwan asked. They probably aren't on the same level. Is Lord Azura very strong? Yi Wanwan asked again. He's decent. I've heard some things about Lord Azura, piece of shit answered. Yi Wanwan couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Since someone at piece of shit's level called Lord Azura decent, it was proof of Lord Azura's frightening abilities. Isn't the martial arts union sending me to my death by telling me to handle Azura? Whether it's the Fearless Alliance or the Azura, it's best if you don't ask too much about them. Just focus on conducting your business. You don't need to overly involve yourself with these factions, piece of shit said to Yi Wanwan. Chapter 1352 Yi Wanwan merely nodded at piece of shit's genial reminder. Yi Wanwan also didn't want to involve herself too much with them. Her original intention upon coming to the independent state was merely to find Si Yihan and ask him about the truth, then take him back to China. Who would have expected everything to escape her control after coming to the independent state? She sank deeper and deeper, unable to extract herself. Lord Shit, why haven't you ever created any factions? Yi Wanwan asked curiously. Rumors claimed this man in front of her had absolute power. This was especially true in a place like the independent state where a person wasn't allowed to use firearms and wasn't overly restrained by laws. Martial skills were everything, so why didn't someone like piece of shit create his own power and build his own empire? Piece of shit was briefly startled. After a moment of thought, he said, why should I create a faction and recruit a bunch of useless garbage? What's the point of that? Yi Wanwan was rendered speechless. Everyone was probably garbage in piece of shit's eyes aside from himself. He was seriously egoistical to his bones. Do you want to drink? Piece of shit asked Yi Wanwan a moment later. Yi Wanwan reflexively wanted to decline but thought better of it and realized that no one would control her here, so she nodded after a momentary daze. Sure, piece of shit got up to retrieve the wine and poured a cup for Yi Wanwan. I brewed this wine myself. You can't drink it outside. Oh. Yi Wanwan was immediately interested. Yi Wanwan soon drank the entire cup. How's the taste? Piece of shit asked Yi Wanwan. The taste is nice, but there doesn't seem to be any alcohol taste. Yi Wanwan put down the cup with confusion on her face. She'd never drank wine that didn't have a taste of alcohol. Yes. Piece of shit nodded. It doesn't have any alcohol content, but there's a sweetness to it. Yi Wanwan looked at piece of shit, bewildered. Lord Shit. Could I treat this as a beverage? You could if you want, piece of shit said. Then why did you freaking ask me if I wanted to drink? Call it a beverage then. You're making a deer out to be a horse. Oh right, Lord Shit, I live right next to you. You can come over whenever you have time, Yi Wanwan said to piece of shit. Next door. Piece of shit looked up. I only have a haunted house next door. Yi Wanwan was exasperated. That's an unlucky house at most. Isn't calling it a haunted house too much? You live inside that haunted house? Piece of shit was astonished. Yes, I live inside the haunted house, Yi Wanwan said as she nodded. Piece of shit was utterly unfamiliar with the president of the Fearless Alliance, so he was clueless about the president's previous residence. That was why it was fine for Yi Wanwan to tell him she lived next door. Oh. Be careful, it's haunted, piece of shit nonchalantly said before getting up to clean the table. Yi Wanwan's lips twitched. Is piece of shit doing this on purpose? Oh right, Lord Shit, Yi Wanwan suddenly stood up in front of piece of shit. I recently got news that there's someone preparing to eliminate Azura and is providing generous compensation. Is Lord Shit interested? Chapter 1353. If piece of shit was willing to fight Azura, couldn't she just sit back and relax? At that point, the martial arts union would give triple the price. She would give piece of shit 1/3 and keep the remaining 2/3. I'm not interested, piece of shit replied calmly. There's a lot of money. A lot of money. Yi Wanwan added enthusiastically. How much money? Piece of shit looked at Yi Wanwan. About this amount, Yi Wanwan whispered. I'm uninterested in outside factions and won't interfere with them. Otherwise, do you think the Fearless Alliance would have survived until today? Piece of shit asked Yi Wanwan. Could it be that piece of shit wasn't being merciful toward the president of the Fearless Alliance? He simply wasn't interested in attacking. Miss Yi. You probably aren't just a door seller, right? Piece of shit's unfathomable eyes suddenly turned toward Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan felt a little guilty. Did he see through me just like that? Besides selling doors, you're probably also a mission intermediary. Large factions assign missions, you're responsible for finding people to accept missions, and you take a percentage as commission. Am I right? Piece of shit continued. Intermediary. Do I look like an intermediary? That's right. Lord Shit is seriously awesome. You managed to figure that out. I have to feed myself somehow, ha, Yi Wanwan quickly went along with it. Help me change the door tomorrow. I won't accept the mission, piece of shit said. Fine. You're the boss, everything you say is right. When Yi Wanwan left piece of shit's house, it was dusk. Big Dipper had started the renovation plans for the 7th floor already, and the elders on the 7th floor didn't say much. They merely moved to another floor. Inside her office, Great White and Virus were sound asleep, and one of Virus's paws was boldly placed on Great White's tummy. Sis Fong, I made the reservation. At that time, Big Dipper entered the office and spoke with a chuckle. Wait, Yi Wanwan looked at Big Dipper. Do you know how to fix doors? Fix doors? Big Dipper was taken back before chortling. There's nothing I don't know. Sis Fong, it was me who installed your office door. Great. Yi Wanwan nodded with joy. As people said, armies were to be maintained for years but used on a single day. Big Dipper was finally of use. Yi Wanwan tossed piece of shit's address to Big Dipper. Put on a worker's uniform for me tomorrow, then go to the address I gave you and install a security door. Huh? You want me to be a door installation worker? Big Dipper seemed to find it hard to accept. Why would he know how to install a door? He was just casually bragging. Don't prattle on about it and just go. Yi Wanwan glanced at Big Dipper. Fine, Big Dipper was forced to nod in agreement. Even bragging is so risky nowadays. Sis Fong, 7-star, and the others are waiting. Let's go. Big Dipper hurried Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan didn't want to go to this place at all, but since Bro Flattop liked to go out often, it was difficult for her to decline. Yi Wanwan had no choice but to get up and follow Big Dipper outside. 7-star and Autumn Water were also coming with them. About half an hour later, Big Dipper drove to a bustling street. They didn't get far and could already hear the deafening and provocative music. Only then did Yi Wanwan realize that Big Dipper was referring to a large and luxurious nightclub. Shit! I've never been to this kind of place. How should I fake my experience realistically? Chapter 1354. 1354. As the deafening music played, Yi Wanwan puffed up her courage and opened the door, slowly exiting the car. 7-Star and Autumn Water were inside and had requested a private room already. Please enter. A girl that looked like a server instantly came up to greet them with a smile. As they walked to the private room, Yuanwan saw a myriad of good-looking girls. Some wore rabbit girl costumes while some were cosplaying and looked very cute. However, what surprised Yuanwan was that there were actually men with heavy makeup who were wearing seriously eye-scathing clothes. However, their looks were passable. What kind of freaking place is this? A moment later, the server opened the door to the private room and retreated. Xiaofeng, come over. Autumn Water quickly stood up from the sofa upon seeing Yuanwan and waved her hand. 7-Star sat on the side with an aloof expression. Sis Feng. Yuanwan nodded in response. A server entered the private room and asked with a smile, do you need any drinks? Yuanwan was about to ask for some drinks when Big Dipper waved his hand and said, we don't. Our Sis Feng never drinks. Oh right, give us some goods. The server nodded and left. Yuanwan was speechless. Si Yihan didn't allow her to drink alcohol when she was in China. Now that she was in the independent state, it turned out Bro Flat Top never drank alcohol either. After some time, a bunch of men and women flooded the room. The server stood on the side, allowing Big Dipper and his group to choose. You, and you. Come here. Big Dipper chuckled and picked a few girls in sexy clothes. Little big brother, come sit here. Autumn Water picked a decent-looking guy. 7-Star, pick someone, Big Dipper urged when he saw 7-Star's inactivity. No need, 7-Star calmly said. Pa, outcast. Big Dipper pursed his lips and looked at Yuanwan. Sis Feng, ignore him. Your turn. Yuanwan's lips twitched. Bro Flat Top also liked this kind of thing. She swept over the selection. Although they weren't bad-looking, they seemed rather flavorless since she was accustomed to stunning beauties. I don't see anyone suitable, Yuanwan said. What in the world are you doing? Even I find them ugly. Can't you give us a better selection? Change. Big Dipper said with a frown. The server had no choice but to take all the guys away and show them another group a moment later. Sis Feng, this batch is good. They're better looking than the earlier ones. They can't compare to me, but they're passable, Big Dipper told Yuanwan. Everyone in this group was wearing casual suits. There were mature men overflowing with masculine charm, and there was also fresh meat with pure and sweet looks. However, they were still incredibly lacking compared to the stunning beauties she'd seen before. She really wasn't interested. There's nothing, Yuanwan said, bored. It wasn't that she didn't want to choose. There really wasn't anything good. 7-Star couldn't possibly suspect her for this, right? Yuanwan believed that Bro Flat Top wasn't an unselective person. She'd at least want top-notch superior quality, right? Little big brother, come sit here. Yuanwan didn't find anything, but Autumn Water's eyes brightened. She instantly chose a shy-looking fresh meat. I didn't expect you to be like this, Autumn Water. Chapter 1355 Big Dipper looked at Yuanwan. Sis Feng, this is quite good already. When did your appetite get so big? What in the world do you want? Yuanwan thought about it and casually said, at least someone on Ji Xiuran's level. These people wouldn't understand if she used Si Yihan as an analogy, so Ji Xiuran's name surfaced in her mind. Ji Xiuran? Big Dipper was taken back and looked confused. Who? Is he more handsome than me? Emperor Ji, Autumn Water glanced at Big Dipper exasperatedly. Big Dipper finally realized Yuanwan was talking about Emperor Ji. Damn. Sis Feng, seriously. Can we not have such high standards? I also like the independent state's #1 beauty. Do you see her paying any attention to me? Yuanwan smiled without saying anything. This was precisely her objective. With a request like hers, they could satisfy it if they had someone with Emperor Ji's good looks and forget it if they didn't. However, what Yuanwan didn't expect was that Autumn Water would secretly take out her phone and find Emperor Ji's number before texting him. Big Dipper had no choice but to tell the server to take this batch away. There was nothing to be done since Yuanwan didn't find anyone to her liking. At this moment, Yuanwan's phone started ringing. It was Lu Ying calling. Yuanwan stood up and left the private room immediately. She found a quieter place to take Lu Ying's call. "Master," Lu Ying's voice resounded from the phone. Yuanwan wasn't too accustomed to Lu Ying's form of address. "What is it?" Yuanwan asked. "Master, where are you?" Lu Ying questioned. "A nightclub," Yuanwan answered honestly. Lu Ying was silent for a moment before saying, "Master. Old Zhang's group and I might have coincidentally gotten some leads on the 9th master today. However, we don't have a permit from the independent state right now, nor do we have the funds and manpower, so it's rather inconvenient for us to investigate the lead." Achio's tracks. Yuanwan's eyes brightened when she heard that. Yuanwan merely wanted to find Si Yihan as soon as possible and return to China with him. The Yi family, the Si family, they had too many things to resolve. Moreover, Yi Shaoting and Yi Mufan didn't have much time left, their sentencing would be decided in about 5 more months. She had to find Si Yihan and return to China before then. "What news did you get?" Yuanwan asked hastily. "Master, it's a long story. But don't worry, Master, we'll definitely get to the bottom of it. However, we need the independent state's permit and money, and also identities," Lu Ying replied. Yuanwan nodded. Permits and money weren't a problem, but the identities Lu Ying mentioned. He probably wanted to obtain a position in the Fearless Alliance so he could order around some members of the Fearless Alliance. It wasn't going to be easy though. "We'll talk about it tomorrow. As for the permits, I've taken care of them already. You don't need to worry about money either," Yuanwan said. Lu Ying sounded a bit moved and hastily said, "Thank you, Master." "Lu Ying, you don't need to call me Master." "Then I'll call you Sis Feng in front of other people," Lu Ying complied. A moment later, Yuanwan hung up the phone. It appeared that allowing Lu Ying and old Jiang and his group to stay behind was the correct decision. She finally got news of Si Yihan after being in the independent state for so long. Hopefully, Lu Ying and the others could find some clear traces. After gathering her thoughts, Yuanwan turned to re-enter the nightclub. This girlie is pretty. Why didn't I see you earlier?" Before Yuanwan could reach the room, a man blocked Yuanwan's path. How is she pretty?" "She's just a whore." A woman in red glanced at Yuanwan and snorted. Yuanwan frowned. "Do they think I'm a hostess at this nightclub?" Chapter 1356. Girlie, what's your name? Who's your leader? A middle-aged man unscrupulously checked out Yuanwan's figure. "You've got the wrong person," Yuanwan coldly said as she glanced at the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man stared at Yuanwan, his lips turning up. "Oh. You have quite the temper." Before Yuanwan could say anything, the woman in red haughtily examined Yuanwan with disdain evident on her face. She asked the middle-aged man, "Brother Xiong, what's good about this trash? She pretends to be holier than thou, but she should look in the mirror first and see who she is." "Ah, Shaolan, don't be jealous. Brother Xiong still loves you." The middle-aged man lasciviously slapped the woman in reds, but as he said that, the woman in red pouted. "Brother Xiong, what are you saying?" "I'm just afraid this trash won't service you well." "That's not necessarily true. You can service me together tonight and you can guide her. How about it?" The middle-aged man chuckled. The woman in red glanced at Yuanwan in contempt. "Since that's what Brother Xiong wants, you'll service Brother Xiong well tonight, do you hear me?" Yuanwan had a humorless smile on her lips. No one had ever acted so presumptuously toward her in the independent state. Although Yi Wanwan knew she wasn't the genuine president of the Fearless Alliance, she was currently resting on the president's throne. Scram, Yi Wanwan said impatiently. You little bitch. Do you know who Brother Xiong is? Allowing you to service Brother Xiong tonight is 3 lifetimes of good fortune. Yet you're fucking pretending to be pure. The woman in red angrily glared at Yi Wanwan. Ah, Xiaolan, don't be so mean. You're going to scare this little miss. The middle-aged man smiled at the woman in red and walked to Yi Wanwan. Girlie, you haven't answered me. What's your name? The middle-aged man reached out for Yi Wanwan's cheek as he said that. Slap. Almost in an instant, Yi Wanwan slapped away the man's right hand. Ah, little miss has a fiery temper. Nice, your brother Xiong prefers them like this. Otherwise, it's like I'm fucking a dead fish, how boring. The middle-aged man licked his dry lips. Capture her and take her to Brother Xiong's house, the woman in red instructed the strong men standing nearby. The strong men accompanying them nodded and immediately walked forward, wanting to cart Yi Wanwan away. A cold glint flickered in Yi Wanwan's eyes as she swung a punch at one of the men's faces. Caught completely off guard, the strong man was hit and he staggered back, his hands clutching his nose as he collapsed onto the ground. A mere punch had broken his nose. You're asking for it, another strong man shouted upon seeing that, enraged. Scram! Yi Wanwan didn't relax her arm and dug her elbow mercilessly into that man's neck. The whole thing took only a dozen or so seconds, and 2 strong men had fallen to the ground already, howls of pain ringing from their mouths. You damn whore, you dare to resist? The woman in red screeched. Slap! Yi Wanwan snorted and backhanded the woman in red's left cheek. The woman in red was flabbergasted as she stared at Yi Wanwan while clutching her swollen cheek. Chapter 1357, Brother Xiong, this whore hit me, this damn whore dared to hit me, the woman in red screeched shrilly. The commotion attracted quite a crowd. Soon, the nightclub's corridor was filled with people, but everyone's expressions shifted when they saw the middle-aged man. Isn't that Yan Xiong? He's from the Yan family. What's this woman's background? She dared to offend Yan Xiong. Is she suicidal? Hee, I heard she's a miss at this nightclub. How gutsy is this woman to dare to offend Yan Xiong of the Yan family? She probably doesn't know Yan Xiong's identity. Hee, what kind of power is the Yan family? Yan Xiong is one of the higher-ups in the Yan family, and he's never failed to get any woman he coveted. This woman is rather interesting, but her fate will likely be tragic. As gossip bubbled amongst the crowd, Yan Xiong's expression chilled instantly. This damn whore dared to embarrass him like this in front of everyone. This had never happened before. Girlie, don't ignore my kind gesture. I don't care whether you work here or not, you must leave with me tonight. Otherwise, I'll kill your whole family, then let my brothers have their turns with you, Yan Xiong threatened darkly while staring at Yi Wanwan. Slap. However, Yan Xiong's only answer was a merciless backhand from Yi Wanwan. Time seemed to have stopped after Yi Wanwan's slap. Everyone froze incredulously in their spots. A few workers at the nightclub glanced at Yi Wanwan and sneered disdainfully, waiting for a good show. They really didn't know where this ignorant woman who dared to hit Yan Xiong came from. Damn whore, I'm gonna fuck you to your grave today. Yan Xiong roared violently and reached for Yi Wanwan's wrist. However, before Yan Xiong could touch Yi Wanwan, she slapped him again, and he crumbled to the ground in a heap. A higher-up of the Yan family like Yan Xiong was rather martially talented when he was young, but his body had been destroyed by alcohol and sex in recent years, so how could he be a match for Yi Wanwan? Damn whore, you're dead. The woman in red stared at Yi Wanwan in disbelief. Yi Wanwan ignored the woman in red and kneeled down instead. She looked at Yan Xiong and sneered. Remember, I'm in room 302. Come and find me if you're a man. I'll be waiting for you. After saying that, Yi Wanwan left. Everyone looked at each other, bewildered. Was this woman a dumbass? Why didn't she flee after hitting Yan Xiong? She even told him her room number. Was she tired of living and wanted to die? That woman doesn't have some background, right? Background my ass. Who doesn't know the bosses of the independent state? I've never seen this woman before. She's probably fucking stupid. A moment later, Yu Wanwan opened the door and entered her private room. Xiao Feng, you're back. An extremely good-looking man wearing a black tailored suit with a bow tie sat silently on the sofa. He greeted her with a light chuckle when he saw Yu Wanwan. Yu Wanwan was surprised. Why's Ji Shiran here? Why are you here? Yu Wanwan frowned slightly. She was currently using Bro Flattop's identity, so she was also Ji Shiran's fiancée. She was at a nightclub looking for amorous affairs, no thanks to Big Dipper. Which meant she was caught at the scene by her fiancé. How awkward. Chapter 1358. Autumn Water told me earlier that you wanted to find someone like me, so I came to take a look. Do I suit your taste? Ji Shiran looked at Yu Wanwan with a sardonic smile and gentle eyes. Yu Wanwan involuntarily shivered. Ji Shiran wasn't spewing nonsense from a fury-induced craze, right? Ah, I'm his fiancé. I was caught at a nightclub seeking pleasure. Yu Wanwan thought about it from a different point of view. What if she caught Si Yihan at a nightclub seeking pleasure? Ji Shiran had to be mad from fury. Yu Wanwan glared at Autumn Water. Her mouth seriously deserved a slapping. Come here. Ji Shiran extended his right hand and gestured at Yu Wanwan before slapping the spot next to him. Yu Wanwan had no choice but to walk to Ji Shiran and sit down next to him. Damn. Could it be that Sis Feng and Emperor Ji are really a thing? How did Sis Feng get her hands on Emperor Ji? Sis Feng didn't drug Emperor Ji, right? Big Dipper looked like he had seen a ghost and stared at Yu Wanwan and Ji Shiran in disbelief. 7-Star glanced at Big Dipper. What are you looking at me for? Emperor Ji's famous for being an abstinent sage in the independent state, alright. Rumors say he's never touched a woman before. Damn, beautiful women surround him like flowers, but he doesn't even glance at them. If it was me, Big Dipper's expression became more and more surprised, and he turned to 7-Star. Old 7, say. Emperor Ji doesn't, what? 7-Star asked dryly. Doesn't, like men, right? Big Dipper finished. Before 7-Star could say anything, Big Dipper stared at 7-Star and exclaimed, shit. I've also never seen you touch a woman. You can't possibly, also like men, right? Big Dipper subconsciously withdrew and increased the distance between them. 7-Star examined Big Dipper aloofly. He didn't look interested in responding to Big Dipper. Is this place fun? Ji Shiran nonchalantly asked Yu Wanwan. Emperor Ji immediately glanced at the fresh meat in the room and continued, are they good-looking? Before Yu Wanwan could say anything, the two fresh meat sitting next to Autumn Water were terrified with fright. This seemingly amiable and approachable man with a harmless and genial smile was actually the Emperor of Europe's underground, Ji Shiran. How could they not know Ji Shiran's great name as residents of the independent state? However, why was this man looking at them? Weren't they keeping Sister Autumn Water company? They were innocent. From now on, you can call me if you want to have fun. Ji Shiran looked away from them and turned back to Yu Wanwan with a faint smile. Big Dipper frantically gave Yu Wanwan a giant thumbs up as he quietly said to 7-Star, say, Old 7, Emperor Ji can't be jealous, right? Damn, Sis Feng actually managed to snag Emperor Ji. Am I dreaming? Yu Wanwan didn't have a chance to say anything before the room's door was kicked open with a bang. Brother Xiong, this is room 302. The damn whore who offended you is here. Two seductively dressed nightclub workers entered the room first and stood by the door. They looked at Yu Wanwan with sneers. Big Dipper and the others were startled, clueless about the sudden turn of events. A second later, Yan Xiong and the woman in red entered the room. Damn whore, you're seriously gutsy. Today, I'm gonna watch you die. The woman in red lit a cigarette and blew some smoke into the air while glaring viciously at Yuan Wan. Chapter 1359. Yan Xiong gestured and dozens of people rushed into the room like a tidal wave. Damn whore, I'm gonna let my brothers have a good time today. Strip her. Yan Xiong sneered. Big Dipper finally realized what had happened. Where did these people come from? Were they tired of living and suicidally causing a commotion in their territory? Emperor Ji didn't even glance at the newcomers and merely asked Yuan Wan, "Are they looking for you?" Yuan Wan nodded and said, "Just a few blind vermin. I was originally going to spare them. Why the fuck are you standing there? Strip her already. Kill any nosy punks." Yan Xiong shouted malevolently. Dozens of men in black dashed toward Yuan Wan. At that moment, Emperor Ji glanced at the men in black. His icy, dark gaze caused them to tremble for some reason. "Mr. Hong, is it? Can you please do me a courtesy and leave?" Ji Shuran lightly asked as he looked at Yan Xiong with a harmless smile. "Oh my, where did this little guy come from? You have rather good looks." The woman in red examined Ji Shuran for a moment before saying, "Brother, be more tactful and get lost immediately. This woman offended our brother Xiong, so she won't be leaving alive unless she gives my brothers a good enough time tonight. I'd like to see how slutty she is. All the unrelated people here except for this woman, get out of my sight. Otherwise, you're all going to die here tonight." Yan Xiong shouted ruthlessly. "Brother Xiong, this damn whore dared to offend you. You mustn't allow her to leave alive. Brother Xiong, you're so benevolent. You're giving this whore a good time before her death." The two seductively dressed workers smiled at Yan Xiong ingratiatingly. Big Dipper and Autumn Water looked at Yan Xiong and his group like they were idiots. Just how ignorant were these people? They could be forgiven for not recognizing them. It was also logical for them to not recognize the Fearless Alliance's Bro Flattop since she was gone for so many years and changed drastically in terms of appearance. However, the fact that they didn't even recognize the freaking Emperor of Europe's underground. "So you won't be doing me this courtesy," Ji Shuran said with a chuckle. Yan Xiong and his group snorted upon hearing that. Did this pretty boy really think he was someone important? Doing him a courtesy? Before Yan Xiong could say anything, a man in a white suit with an extremely grave and stern appearance entered the room. "My lord." The stern man bowed to Ji Shuran. "Skeleton, we can't stop the sky from raining," Ji Shuran said with a smile. The stern man, Skeleton, nodded in understanding. "We can't stop the sky from raining." The corresponding phrase was, "No one can save a person from seeking death." Kill. A dagger appeared in Skeleton's hand out of nowhere. Before anyone understood what was happening, Skeleton disappeared from his spot and the strange sound of a weapon piercing flesh and bones was heard in the next second. A dozen breaths later, more than 10 of the people brought by Yan Xiong had their necks pierced by Skeleton's dagger. The remaining dozen or so people were flabbergasted by this scene. He's, one of the 8 gods under Emperor Ji. Night Skeleton. What? Skeleton? The audience had grown outside the room. Everyone's expressions shifted when they heard Skeleton's name, they were all in disbelief. There were 8 gods under Emperor Ji with combat skills that could be described as freakish, Skeleton was one of them. Chapter 1360. 1360. Could it be that the woman who offended Yan Xiong had some kind of connection to Skeleton? Several audience members' expressions shifted when they thought of that. No wonder that woman acted so arrogantly and disregarded Yan Xiong to that extent. It turned out she knew Skeleton. Yan Xiong's expression also shifted drastically. He dashed out of room 302 within seconds. Skeleton. You fucking. You dared to oppose our Yen family for a woman? Did you ask Emperor Ji before doing that? Just wait. Yen Xiong angrily shouted into the room after getting outside. One of the higher-ups in their Yen family knew Emperor Ji Xiuran, and that higher-up was coincidentally entertaining an esteemed guest in this very nightclub right now. Brother Xiong, the woman in red didn't know what to do as she stood next to Yen Xiong. I'm going to call my fourth uncle over. At the same time, inside room 302, Skeleton looked at Emperor Ji in inquiry. No need to chase them. Call someone to clean this place up, Ji Xiuran said with a faint smile. Skeleton nodded minutely and turned to leave the room. A moment later, he led the manager of the nightclub there. The manager was drenched in sweat when he saw the corpses littering the ground, sweat dripping down like pearls from his forehead. Clean up this place, Skeleton apathetically ordered. Why yes. So sure. We'll clean it immediately. The manager ordered some servers to carry the corpses out and cautiously cleaned the entire room, returning it to its original condition before excusing himself and leaving. Seven Star and Big Dipper acted like nothing had happened. They were used to this kind of thing in the Fearless Alliance. Yi Wanwan nonchalantly glanced at Emperor Ji. This man always wore a faint smile no matter what was happening, as though he was a harmless boy next door. However, it was this seemingly gentle man who was the tyrannical emperor of Europe's entire underground syndicates. How could this man be anything but a bloodthirsty character? Everyone was probably deceived by his harmless exterior, but seriously believing Emperor Ji was harmless was likely the stupidest thing to do in this world. The consequence was a devastating attack. Oh right, come to my house in a few days, Emperor Ji lightly said while looking at Yi Wanwan, his lips tightly sealed about the prior events. Yi Wanwan's expression shifted slightly. Aside from possessing his own power, Emperor Ji was also the heir of the Ji family, one of the four great clans of the independent state. Wasn't telling her to go to his house the same as telling her to go to the Ji residence? However, it seemed logical for a fiancé to visit her fiancé's house, so Yi Wanwan couldn't find any excuse to decline. Sure, when I'm free in a few days, Yi Wanwan agreed in the end. Ji Xiuran nodded lightly. At this time, Yen Xiong had reached a certain luxurious private room at the nightclub. Fourth uncle. Yen Xiong pushed open the door and entered, fuming with rage. There was a smiling elderly man with a head of white hair in front of him. Sitting next to the elderly man was an extremely aloof man. The man's eyes were akin to a perpetually frozen glacier, and he emitted a terrifyingly icy aura from head to toe. This man seemed to have been God's favorite. His appearance was absolutely stunning. However, because his aura was overly imposing and powerful, people's attention was utterly focused on his aura, and some didn't even dare to look at his face directly. Chapter 1361, Lord, say, how about we submit this amount every month? Fourth Uncle Yan's tone was extremely cautious as he looked at the man with an ingratiating smile. Fourth uncle, don't talk anymore, I was bullied. Yen Xiong hastily walked toward the elderly man and the man when his fourth uncle ignored him. However, Yen Xiong had just approached when the man's utterly bone-chilling eyes examined him. A mere look caused Yen Xiong to feel like he fell into an icy pit, frost covering his arms and ice eroding his cells. You fucking idiot. Fourth Uncle Yen abruptly stood up and backhanded Yen Xiong's face without giving him another chance to speak. A crisp slap rang out. The force behind it was clear as day. Yen Xiong clutched his face and looked at the elderly man, baffled. He complained with outrage, Fourth Uncle, why did you hit me? You little bastard, you rashly charged inside without seeing who I'm with. Do you want to die? Fourth Uncle Yen shouted angrily. Fourth Uncle Yen looked at the man next to him with a simpering smile, Lord. I've embarrassed myself. This is my nephew. But some blind idiot offended him. The man expressionlessly looked at Fourth Uncle Yen for a moment before apathetically saying, then scram outside if you want to talk. Why yes. My lord, I'll go outside to talk right now, the elderly man nodded vehemently. Yan Xiong looked at the man with an astonished expression. Just what was this man's background and status that he dared to speak to fourth uncle like this? What was most abnormal was that fourth uncle remained bowing and servile toward this man. Wasn't this too excessive? Soon, the elderly man led Yan Xiong outside the room. Fourth uncle, who's that man? Why is he so arrogant? Yan Xiong looked at his uncle with incomprehension written all over his face. When fourth uncle Yan heard this, he mercilessly slapped Yan Xiong's face. Do you fucking want to die? Quiet down. If he overhears you, you won't even fucking know how you died. Isn't that too exaggerated? He can't be Emperor Ji, right? Yan Xiong recalled how Skeleton also showed up at the nightclub. Idiot, the lord inside is Lord Azura. Yan Xiong said. What? El Lord. Lord Azura. Sweat and fright overcame Yan Xiong when he learned that man's identity. Lord Azura was the leader of Azura, one of the independent state's most terrifying powers once upon a time. People called him the Lord of Night. Cold, heartless, savage, and decisive. He held no regard for even the martial arts union. Rumors claimed Lord Azura had some connection to the independent state's recluse ancient clan, the Sea Clan. Alright, enough nonsense. What do you want? Fourth uncle asked. Yan Xiong immediately told fourth uncle Yan the whole story. Fourth uncle Yan grew furious upon hearing the events. That happened. Isn't Skeleton belittling our Yan family too much? I must make Skeleton give me an explanation tonight. Fourth uncle, Skeleton is under Emperor Ji. If we attack, wouldn't? Yan Xiong asked with a frown. No worries, I'll personally speak with Emperor Ji about this matter tomorrow, fourth uncle Yan replied. Soon, fourth uncle Yan called upon dozens of elite experts from the Yan family. No matter how strong Skeleton was, he wasn't a match for dozens of the top elite experts from the Yan family. Amongst the 8 gods under Emperor Ji, Skeleton's strength ranked the lowest. Rumors said Skeleton's specialty wasn't martial arts, his brain was best at being a military counselor. Chapter 1362. Soon, Yan family led fourth uncle Yan and the experts to the door of room 302. The woman in red and the 2 workers with heavy makeup and seductive clothes sneered when they saw fourth uncle Yan's appearance. Time to watch how that woman would die this time. Bang! Yan Xiong kicked the door open. Big Dipper and 7 Star frowned. You bastards are going to die today. The woman in red lit a cigarette and sneered as she looked at Yi Wanwan and Ji Shuran. Let's see how fucking egoistical you'll be now. The 2 seductive women also interjected with a sneer. Fourth uncle Yan slowly entered room 302 and was about to say something but froze in his spot when his eyes swept over the room. Fearless Alliance's Big Dipper. 7 Star. Autumn Water. Aside from these people, the man on the sofa languidly glanced at him with an aloof smile. You pieces of shit dared to offend me? Yan family sneered. You must all die tonight. Skeleton, our Yan family has connections to Emperor Ji. You dared to offend me tonight, let's see how you'll explain yourself to Emperor Ji tomorrow. Then Yan Xiong ordered the elite experts brought by fourth uncle Yan, attack. Leave me the damn whore next to the pretty boy. You're reading on BOXNOVEL, thanks. However, Yan Xiong had just spoken when fourth uncle Yan's expression drastically changed, and he ruthlessly backhanded Yan Xiong's face. Fourth uncle, why did you slap me again? Yan Xiong was baffled as he clutched his face and looked at his uncle. Fourth uncle Yan didn't pay any attention to Yan Xiong though. He walked toward Ji Shuran and hastily said with a simpering smile, Emperor Ji, why are you here? The woman in red and 2 seductively dressed workers were utterly flabbergasted, their sneers frozen on their faces. The audience outside the door, which kept increasing in number, was also incredulous. That man was actually the greatly renowned Ji Xiuran in the independent state. Emperor Ji. Could it be the woman who slapped Yan Xiong earlier is Emperor Ji's lover? I think it's possible. No wonder she's so gutsy and arrogant. It turns out she latched onto the powerful Emperor Ji. Yan Xiong is out of luck this time. That's not necessarily true. She's just a mere toy. The Yan family is quite strong, and Emperor Ji is friends with the previous head of the Yan family, so Emperor Ji probably wouldn't have a fallout with them because of a mere woman. The audience fervently gossiped amongst themselves. Yan Xiong froze in his spot. That man is Emperor Ji. Ji Xiuran chuckled lightly and said, I came to spend some time with my friend, but I seem to have offended someone from your Yan family just now. Do I need to apologize? Apologize? No. Why in the world would you need to apologize, Emperor Ji? My nephew must have been blind and caused some misunderstanding. Emperor Ji, your esteemed self is benevolent, so please don't punish us for this matter. After all, it's just a woman, fourth Uncle Yan requested, falling all over himself. Punish? Ji Xiuran smiled and shook his head. I won't punish you. Ha ha ha, that's great. Normal people couldn't compare to Emperor Ji's generosity. I'll thank Emperor Ji first, fourth Uncle Yan hastily said with a grin. However, Ji Xiuran looked at fourth Uncle Yan and smiled. I might not punish you, but you have to ask the Fearless Alliance whether they'll punish you instead. The Fearless Alliance? Fourth Uncle Yan's brows furrowed slightly. Big Dipper, 7 Star, and Autumn Water were the confidants of the Fearless Alliance's president from back then. They were once fearsome, but they had lost all real power in the Fearless Alliance following the president's disappearance. Chapter 1363, Ha ha ha, Big Dipper, 7 Star, how about you give me some face and forget about this matter? It's all a misunderstanding. You two gentlemen probably wouldn't want to have bad blood with me because of a woman, right? It's just a woman, there's all kinds, fourth Uncle Yan said with a chuckle. Discussion bustled amongst the audience again. Could it be that 7 Star and Big Dipper from the Fearless Alliance also had a thing with this woman? However, it had to be said that this woman's looks were superb. So it would be understandable if she had illicit relationships with those bosses too. Ha, nothing but a high-level whore. In the end, she's still selling herself. The two seductively dressed workers snorted inwardly. The woman in red stared at Yuan Wan with gritted teeth. She only managed to latch onto Yan Xiong of the Yan family, but this woman actually latched onto Big Dipper and 7 Star from the Fearless Alliance. She seemed to have something with even Emperor Ji, old geezer, it's pointless to ask us. Talk to Sis Feng yourself and see if she agrees, Big Dipper dryly replied with a glance at fourth Uncle Yan. Sis Feng. Fourth Uncle Yan was startled and reflexively asked, which Sis Feng? What? You don't even recognize Sis Feng anymore. The president of the Fearless Alliance, Sis Feng, Big Dipper said. By Feng? Fourth Uncle Yan was astonished. Big Dipper. You're saying President Bai returned? Then where's President Bai? Isn't she before your eyes? Big Dipper pointed at Yuan Wan. Silence. Dead silent. Not a single sound could be heard inside or outside the room. Everyone's eyes landed on Yuan Wan. Time seemed to have stopped, the air also froze. Everyone was stupefied. What did Big Dipper just say? The woman who offended Yan Xiong was, the president, of the Fearless Alliance. Bro Flat Top. The woman in red and the two seductively dressed women next to her turned ghastly pale. They had never seen the president of the Fearless Alliance before, but who didn't know Bro Flat Tops, Bai Feng's infamous reputation? BB Bai. Bai. Bai Feng. I'm impossible. That's absolutely impossible, the woman in red crumbled onto the ground like a pile of mud. The two seductively dressed workers also froze on the spot, disbelief covering their faces. President of the Fearless Alliance. Bro flat top, the smile on Yan Xiong's face disappeared without a trace and was replaced by fear. What the heck did he do? She's president by. Fourth Uncle Yan looked at Yi Wanwan incredulously. Bullshit, Big Dipper coldly said. Isn't your Yan family's news a little outdated? How could you not know Sis Feng returned? This. Cold sweat soaked Fourth Uncle Yan's forehead. President. I won't take responsibility for this matter. It has nothing to do with me. You probably can't be in charge of it anyway, right? Ji Shuran asked the elderly man with a light chuckle. Ji Shuran turned to Yi Wanwan. Xiao Feng, how about you let me handle this matter? Yi Wanwan thought it over before nodding. Skeleton, you can give them a taste of their own medicine, Ji Shuran told Skeleton with a smile. All right. Skeleton nodded. Since Yan Xiong likes to give women to his favored brothers, then I'll give those 3 women to some normal brothers of mine. Playing with them until they're dead will do. Sure. Emperor Ji chuckled. Chapter 1364. 1364 The woman in red and the 2 workers turned ashen when they heard Ji Shuran. Never would they have expected the girl they called damn whore would actually be the president of the Fearless Alliance. Bro flat top. President. President by. I was wrong. I didn't do it on purpose. I beg you to spare me, I won't ever do it again. One of the workers knelt next to Yi Wanwan instantly and begged crazily. Autumn Water abruptly stood up and kicked out her leg, the tips of her high heels mercilessly striking the woman's forehead and sending the woman several meters back. Impudent trash. Autumn Water coldly glanced at the woman and sat back down. TSK, pitiful people must have something detestable about them. Even if she was a normal person, she didn't provoke you. Just because she's taller than you, has a bigger chest than you, and is better looking than you want nothing more than for her to die. What a damn whore. Big Dipper sneered at the woman in red and the 2 workers. Leave. Ji Shuran waved his hand lightly with a smile on his lips. Skeleton nodded and ordered someone to cart away the withered Yan Xiong and 3 women out of the room. Fourth Uncle. Fourth Uncle, save me. This is a misunderstanding. This must be a misunderstanding. Yan Xiong returned to his senses and couldn't help but beg his uncle to save him. Shut up. Fourth Uncle Yan glared harshly at Yan Xiong. What a useless idiot. You asked for death yourself. No one can save you, don't drag me down with you. No. Fourth Uncle. Isn't our Yan family sheltered by Azura? We pay tribute every month. Isn't Lord Azura also here? Fourth Uncle, quickly tell Lord Azura to come out. Quick. Yan Xiong frantically shouted. However, Fourth Uncle Yan merely chortled. Just who was Lord Azura? Why would he interfere in this trivial matter? Moreover, it was a rule for the Yan family to submit a tribute to Azura every month because the Yan family's territory was situated in Azura's territory, but submitting a tribute didn't mean Azura would shelter them, it wasn't like they were giving a protection fee. If anything, Lord Azura would shelter the head of the Yan family. What did he have to do with nobodies like them? Soon, Yan Xiong's cries for mercy grew distant until they faded. Inside the room, Ji Shuran courteously smiled at Fourth Uncle Yan and said, if there's nothing else, please leave as well. Why yes. Emperor Ji. President Bai, it was our wrongdoing today. We'll definitely apologize later. I'll take my leave now. Fourth Uncle Yan wiped away the sweat on his forehead and promptly left the room. The old geezer seriously has a flowery tongue. Big Dipper snorted. That fourth uncle is the Yan family's diplomat and has a belly full of evil tricks. Before the president returned, he was plotting against our fearless alliance. What a mood killer. Autumn Water snorted. Xiao Feng, let's go back. Sure. Yi Wanwan nodded. She wasn't interested in this kind of place from the start, so she wanted nothing more than to leave sooner. Everyone got up and left the room. When they left the room, a group of men in black walked downstairs, as though escorting an important person out of the club. Who is that? What an ostentatious entourage. Big Dipper leaned against the door as he looked ahead with curiosity. Yi Wanwan followed Big Dipper's gaze and looked toward the center of the men in black. What she saw startled her though. Chapter 1365. She only saw the back of the man in the center, but that silhouette was too familiar. Si Yihan's face instantly appeared in Yi Wanwan's mind. She couldn't be certain, but that figure's back was simply too similar. However, if it was really Si Yihan, why would he come to this kind of red light place to fulfill his carnal desires? Yi Wanwan never would have expected she would silently hypothesize how she would feel if it was Si Yihan who was there a second ago and would see his familiar figure as soon as she stepped outside. Si Yihan. Yi Wanwan subconsciously shouted at that person. The man entered a black car in the center of the motorcade and had just closed the door when he heard a voice that he had yearned after for many days. Moreover, that voice seemed to be calling his name. Ninth brother, what is it? Lin K, who was sitting next to the man, asked when he saw something off about the man's expression. Nothing, the man replied aloofly. Ninth brother, what is it? Lin K pursued, unwilling to give up when the man looked like he had something on his mind. The man was silent for a moment before asking, did you hear it? Hear? Lin K was startled. Hear what? I didn't hear anything, Wanwan's voice, the man said. Huh? Yi Wanwan. Lin K broke into a chuckle. Ninth brother, have you fallen ill from longing? How could it be Yi Wanwan? This is the independent state, and Yi Wanwan is in China. There are thousands of miles between us. You're overthinking, ninth brother. Perhaps. The man looked at the nightclub through the window. However, that familiar figure wasn't in front of the nightclub. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates, better experience please click for visiting. Drive, Lin K ordered. The motorcade started moving. Ninth brother, after coming back this time, we've cut off all ties with everything in China. You said it yourself. Can you really let it go? Lin K looked at the man. The man fell into silence and didn't respond. Ninth brother. I know you had no choice in what you did. To protect her, you brought her back to China and even destroyed her memories. Now, you had to painfully leave. However, it's a good thing. She will only be safe in China, she can start a new life there and will never again see this place that provoked fear in her, the independent state. Lin K sighed. A moment later, the man looked outside, his eyes unfathomable. The night was dark, and the pattering rain drizzled onto the ground. Inside the nightclub, Big Dipper looked at Yi Wanwan, who was suddenly dazed, with his brows furrowed. Sis Feng, what happened? Yi Wanwan gathered her emotions upon hearing that and said, it's nothing. Did she go crazy from how much she wanted to find him? She thought a random silhouette was Si Yihan. Bullshit, I know you best. Something must have happened. Oh right, why did you call Si, what is it, oh right, Si Yihan just now? Who's Si Yihan? It's not some lover you found while you were missing these past years, right? Big Dipper looked at Yi Wanwan with astonishment. Si Yihan, Ji Xiuran murmured this name, an indescribable glint flickering through his eyes. I said it's nothing. Are you blind? Yi Wanwan snapped with a glare at Big Dipper. What does this have to do with being blind? Shouldn't it be deaf? Big Dipper was bewildered. Chapter 1366, 1366, You're stepping on my foot, Yi Wanwan coldly said in the midst of her swirling thoughts and emotions. Big Dipper looked down. He really had accidentally stepped on Sis Feng's shoe. Xiao Feng, I'll take you home, Ji Shuran said. Okay. Yi Wanwan nodded and followed Ji Shuran into his car. Big Dipper, 7-Star, and Autumn Water all left as well. Ji Shuran drove to Yi Wanwan's inauspicious abode and stopped. Yi Wanwan was about to leave when Ji Shuran called her. Xiaofeng. Ji Shuran looked at Yi Wanwan. I hope you can distinguish between people you should long for and people you shouldn't long for. Yi Wanwan was taken back. What did he mean by should long for and shouldn't long for? Before Yi Wanwan could ask any more questions, Ji Shuran drove away. Ji Shuran stopped the car a moment later. He took out his phone and dialed a number. Emperor Ji, what's your order? A creepy voice was heard from the other end. Fiend, look into who was at the nightclub I was at tonight. Look to see if there was someone named Si Yihan. Ji Shuran smiled faintly. Emperor Ji, don't worry, I'll definitely find out for you. Inside the mansion, Yi Wanwan tossed and turned on her bed, unable to fall asleep. The back of that person at the nightclub tonight was seriously too similar to Si Yihan. However, she didn't get any response to her call. She didn't have much time left. She was clueless about the current situation of the Yi family and the Si family. Everything was beyond her control. While Yi Wanwan was lost in thought, she heard some sounds coming from her enormous mansion, sounds that were especially strange this late at night. Yi Wanwan sat up on the bed instantly. Her burrows were deeply furrowed together as she looked around her. For some reason, the words Yi Shuihan told her earlier today appeared in her mind. A dismemberment case once happened in this unlucky house. It was haunted. All of Yi Wanwan's hair stood on end when she thought of that, and a chill crawled down her back. This unlucky house really wasn't haunted, right? Yi Wanwan gathered her thoughts and carefully listened to her surroundings. A moment later, a squeak was heard, as though the mansion's door was opened and footsteps could be heard from the living room. Yi Wanwan frowned when she heard that. Only humans had footsteps, since when did ghosts have footsteps? However, Yi Wanwan wasn't absolutely certain. In the dark, Yi Wanwan got out of bed and quietly walked to the door on her tiptoes before opening the door. She looked down at the living room on the first floor from the second floor. This scene sent chills into Yi Wanwan's heart. There were about 7 or 8 men in black with weapons in their hands. They had reached the hall and were heading upstairs silently. There was low visibility at night, so those men in black didn't seem to notice Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan immediately recalled how Yi Shuihan said someone tried to assassinate him at his home, but the assassins possibly hadn't gotten the right address. It sounded like a joke when she first heard it, but now. Yi Wanwan couldn't figure out who wanted her life though. She did offend quite a number of people after coming to the independent state. Carefully considering it, it was extremely possible for those old geezers in the Fearless Alliance to want her to disappear completely, especially Third Elderly C. Chapter 1367. Speaking of which, besides the bosses she offended, Bro Flattop herself probably offended a countless number of people. If those bosses shifted the blame onto her, this would be a great misunderstanding. With a deep frown, Yi Wanwan watched the men in black at the front slowly creeping upstairs. Thankfully, she couldn't fall asleep. The consequences would be too horrible to contemplate otherwise. When the men in black were about to reach the second floor, Yi Wanwan suddenly stood up with a cold glint in her eyes. Bro Flattop, the leader shouted when he saw her. Your grandfather is here. Yi Wanwan snorted and promptly kicked him. Bang! Yi Wanwan's kick perfectly landed on that man in black's head. A second later, the man in black rolled down the stairs, knocking down the other men behind him. Visibility was low at night, so they couldn't avoid him even if they wanted to. Yi Wanwan used the stair railings and jumped down into the living room without any hesitation. These men in black came to assassinate the president of the Fearless Alliance, so every single one of them had to be very strong. Yi Wanwan wasn't a fool. Why would she fight with those men? Of course she'd flee first. Soon, the leader stood up and was about to say something when he saw the president slipping out the door and escaping the mansion. Chase! She must die tonight, the leader shouted furiously. The men were extremely fast. They turned into dark shadows and chased after her. Outside the mansion, Yuanwan couldn't differentiate north from south and could only concentrate on fleeing for her life. Those men in black clearly wanted Bro Flattop's life. She might be a decent fighter, but her skills were nothing in the face of these professional assassins from the independent state. As Yuanwan ran, she looked behind her. It had to be said that those men in black were extremely fast, at least a couple times faster than her. Yuanwan's brows were deeply locked together. These people aren't assassins. They should run marathons instead. Yuanwan was getting anxious. Those men behind her were simply too fast, they'd probably catch up to her in a dozen or so more seconds at most. If she really was Bro Flattop, she naturally wouldn't need to be scared. But she was merely a counterfeit. She might not even defeat them one-on-one, let alone 7 or 8 of them at once. She'd be done for if they caught up to her. Death would be imminent. At that moment, Yuanwan caught the other side of the street from the corner of her eyes. There was a normal house standing there. What was special about this house was that it didn't have a door. Yuanwan's eyes turned cold. Doesn't Yi Shuihan live there? The gears in her mind turned, and she dashed toward the doorless house without any hesitation. The men in black didn't sense anything amiss and followed relentlessly. It was pitch black inside the house. Yuanwan couldn't find Yi Shuihan anywhere inside. An ominous feeling rose in her mind. If Knight-errant Yi wasn't home, didn't she run herself into a dead end? She had set herself up as an easy target. Knight-errant Yi, are you home? Yuanwan shouted. A sound was heard from the sofa in the living room. Yuanwan automatically looked at the sofa. Yi Shuihan sat up from the sofa in cartoon pajamas, vicious displeasure surfacing in his eyes from being woken up. However, his appearance merely gave a dazedly cute feeling when paired with his extremely adorable cartoon pajamas. In the next second, Yi Shuihan's gaze landed on Yuanwan. Knight-errant Yi, not good. I just saw a group of men in black sneakily lingering in front of your house. They must have come here to assassinate you. I came to notify you at the risk of my life, Yuanwan hastily said as she walked toward Yi Shuihan. Chapter 1368. Yi Shuihan's red eyes glittered with a vicious glint, as though he couldn't tolerate being woken up from his sleep. Someone wants to assassinate me, Yi Shuihan muttered with a slightly hoarse voice, his eyes glittering. Yuanwan nodded vehemently. Yuanwan knew she didn't have a solid friendship with piece of shit, Yi Shuihan, so he didn't have any reason to help her if she didn't make up an excuse. Anyway, Yi Shuihan already had an assassination attempt last time too, so being targeted another time wasn't too much. Why are you here? Yi Shuihan slowly turned to Yuanwan. Yuanwan quickly answered, Knight-errant Yi, did you forget? We're neighbors. Yi Shuihan was silent for a moment before muttering, oh. The men in black charged inside before Yuanwan could say anything else. Yi Shuihan's house didn't have a door, so it was incredibly easy to enter. Yuanwan hastily ran closer to piece of shit upon seeing them. Knight-errant Yi, it's them. Piece of shit's bone-chilling gaze swept over those men immediately. The men in black were taken aback when they saw the man in cartoon pajamas. This man had pulled his long hair into a ponytail and was wearing yellow cartoon-printed pajamas, as though he was a manga character who walked into the real world. You have helpers? The leader was startled. These men in black had never seen piece of shit before, so how could they have recognized the god in front of them? Why? Piece of shit darkly asked as he stared at the men in black. What why? The leader reflexively replied, baffled. Why did you disrupt my sleep? Piece of shit twisted his neck and walked toward the men with large strides. Before those men in black could react, piece of shit was a hair's breadth away. No one saw how Piece of Shit attacked, but Piece of Shit was now gripping one of the men by the neck. The man's feet left the ground as Piece of Shit lifted him into the air with a single arm. The man whose throat was gripped by Piece of Shit looked terrified. Is he a monster? You're dead, the leader shouted in rage. However, the cracking of bones resounded just as he finished speaking. The choked man's neck was shattered instantly. After crushing the man's neck, Piece of Shit released his right hand, and the man dropped to the ground with a bang, dying miserably on the spot. What did you just say? Piece of Shit's gaze landed on the leader. You, sweat soaked the leader's forehead. Just who the hell is this guy? Why is he so terrifying? Attack together. The leader made up his mind a moment later. Regardless of who he was, they had many people on their side. The outcome was uncertain until they started fighting. If they really weren't a match, they could escape. Several men in black charged toward Piece of Shit after the leader spoke. However, minutes later, 7 corpses were added to the floor. Those men in black didn't have any chance of escaping in the end. Yi Wanwan was flabbergasted. Yi Shuihan was seriously terrifyingly powerful. She couldn't imagine how his body possessed such explosive power. Chapter 1369, 1369. Those men in black didn't seem to have any room for retaliation in front of Yi Shuihan. When will you help me install the door? Piece of Shit sat down on the sofa and asked Yi Wanwan. Tomorrow, Yi Wanwan answered promptly. Piece of Shit nodded. Money isn't a problem. Install a better door, I don't want to keep getting disturbed. Yi Wanwan's lips twitched. Thankfully, Big Dipper hadn't come to install the door today. Her fate would have been tragic otherwise. Yi Wanwan thought, when Big Dipper installs the door, I gotta force Big Dipper to make a spare key. Since you aren't leaving, do you want to sleep together? Piece of Shit lay down on the sofa and looked at Yi Wanwan. Goodbye, knight-errant Yi. Yi Wanwan turned to leave. After leaving Yi Shuihan's residence, Yi Wanwan didn't return to the unlucky house and went to the office directly. She forcefully dragged Virus and Great White to the mansion with her. Inviting 2 bodyguards to live at her place made her feel safer. Inside the mansion, Virus acted like he'd discovered new land and jumped up and down in the living room, seeming to have inexhaustible energy. Great White yawned and lay on the ground, his large eyes locked onto Virus. A moment later, Yi Wanwan brought Virus and Great White into the master's bedroom. Virus nimbly jumped onto Yi Wanwan's bed immediately, his head leaning against Yi Wanwan's stomach with his limbs placed casually. Without any doubt, this was the clingiest beast she'd ever seen. He didn't have any of the haughtiness that belonged to a beast. Meanwhile, Great White's large body lay horizontally in front of the door like a door god. The next morning at dawn, Yi Wanwan arrived at the office. Yi Wanwan didn't publicize the events from last night. Although she suspected it to be the work of those old geezers, she didn't have any proof. Even if she had proof, it was unrealistic for her to knock those old geezers down with her current power in the Fearless Alliance. Right now, watching and waiting was the best approach. Sis Feng. 7-Star entered and said to Yi Wanwan, Yan Xiong was killed last night, and the Yan family is outraged. They want the Fearless Alliance and Sis Feng to give them an explanation. The elders told me to call you over for a meeting. I'll be there in a moment, Yi Wanwan replied. 7-Star nodded and left the office. After 7-Star left, Yi Wanwan frowned. Her first hard battle after coming to the independent state and pretending to be the president of the Fearless Alliance was about to begin. At the Fearless Alliance's peak, the Yan family would be considered insignificant in the eyes of the Fearless Alliance. However, following the president's disappearance, the Yan family developed rapidly over the years and stopped caring about the Fearless Alliance a long time ago. Yesterday, it was Emperor Ji who killed Yan Xiong, but the Yan family directed the blame onto the Fearless Alliance. A moment later, Yi Wanwan got up and left the office, heading for the conference room. Inside the conference room, aside from third elder Li Si, 2 other elders were present. The remaining attendees were the higher-ups of the Fearless Alliance. Heh! President, you just returned. How did you stab the hornet's nest already? Li Si criticized with a sneer as soon as Yuan appeared. Several higher-ups nodded vehemently and voiced their agreement. Although they didn't explicitly say Yuan acted poorly, their words implicitly expressed their blame. Yuan didn't say anything and walked forward, pulling back the chair in the center of the conference room before sitting down. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.